Hello and welcome to another episode of Roy B. the Middleman podcast, the 20th episode. And I've actually got a guest again this time because the last couple of times I've been without a guest just to tide me over the Christmas period. So back into the flow with beautiful guests. And today with me is Elise Riley. She's the host of the Generation Elevation podcast, a high performance mindfulness coach helping athletes and business owners maximize performance results. The bridge of science and spirituality. So welcome to the show. Welcome to my first guest of 2023. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Roy. Yeah, I'm amazing. I'm feeling so good today.
Great. Yeah, I'm just paying the compliment because, you've had me on your podcast. So I've got to kind of pay you a bit of gratitude because you're part of the reason why this podcast basically got up and running.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, honestly, I had so much fun with you on my show and lots of good feedback with that episode as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's excellent. Yeah. And the lady that was on episode 5 was because of that podcast as well.
Oh, wow,
So
cool.
the Halloween special was born out of me being on your podcast.
Wow, amazing. I love that.
So for the listeners out there, for you who haven't listened or watched, go check episode, I think it's 5 or 6. I think it's 6 actually, is the Halloween one. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Episode 6 is the Halloween one. So if you haven't already listened to that, go check it out. Excellent. Right. So, well, let's get into your journey a bit because we've spoken a little bit just over the phone the other day and you're going through some really profound awakenings at the moment. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I would say that I have always had a openness to psychic abilities and all that kind of stuff. For me, though, I wasn't truly aware of that until later on after high school. So, looking back in hindsight, there were definitely things through primary school where I'd be connecting with spirit, connecting with God, source, universe, or whatever you believe in, right? And so for me, I would be doing that, trying to manifest like me winning the Easter raffle and things like this at school. And so I already had just this subconscious deep awareness of this already without truly realizing what that was. Through high school, I completely shut that out, lost it. I went through some pretty rough times in school, very much just trying to fit in and very well, I guess you would say just dishonoring what I wanted because I wanted to fit in. Like I felt so outcasted from the rest of the crowd. So people pleasing, self-sacrificing, like I was just kind of doing it all while just trying to survive. I like to think that high school is pretty much the survival of the fittest. And fittest is not necessarily like physical, it's just like how mentally strong that you can be. And I feel like it's a lot of people just protecting themselves and just trying to get by. So that was kind of my high school experience. So for me, completely shut out spirituality and thought it was very woo and not cool. And if you were into all that kind of stuff, you were a bit weird, right? So I was very like judgy of that. And for me, though, like looking back in hindsight, I have always been so connected. And I would get visions when I was younger through school, like, yeah, I'm going to speak on stage. I'm going to run events. I'm not sure what it's going to be about. I need to do this, this, and this PT by year 12. And for me, I thought I was just making a logical plan. But now I know that I was very divinely guided by spirit and my soul. Like that was my part of my life path. So for me, I started my own business at 17, doing personal training. And then eventually that evolved into nutrition as well. So created my own business there. And that actually was extremely successful. So 18, running a 6-figure business, just getting heaps of people in, very evidence-based and keeping up with all the science and all the knowledge, helping people transform their bodies physically. So that was something that I really enjoyed. And for me, I thought maybe this was what I was going to speak on stage about. Like maybe that is what I'm supposed to be talking about in this vision that I've had. And so I kind of held on to that for a little bit until I started attracting people and clients who would pay me and then not do the things that I would say. So they would come in, pay me, and then they'd get no results. And then there would be other types of clients who would come in, get the results, leave, and not sustain it. So for me, I'm someone that is extremely passionate about everything that I do. And if my heart's not in it 100%, my heart's definitely not in it. So for me, I was making these lack of results or inconsistent results mean that I was a bad coach because they were paying me, they weren't getting a result, and therefore like I was the problem and I wasn't good enough. So this brought up a lot of deep rooted beliefs from high school that I had developed over time. So it was a really healing journey for me. And in that, I then started to learn about personal development because I was like, well, obviously all of these people who are wanting to get these results, the number one common theme that I'm getting here is that all stems from their mindset. It's all coming from mindset. So I went deep into mindset and was like, what is this mindset thing? Why do people do the things they do? Why do they say they're going to do something and then not follow through on that? And so that was my big journey into like personal development, investing into myself and my business. And at the time I was like very success driven and just wanting to scale my personal training stuff. And then for me, the biggest, I guess, facilitator of change in my journey was through 2020. I think that was very common for a lot of people. It really made me shift because for me, my business is face-to-face. So I moved everything then online. And I was also going through a major breakup. So I was with my partner at the time for 5 years. And for some reason, I know now, my soul was like, he's not it. And my logical brain was like, what the hell? Like, this guy is perfect on paper. Like, he's everything that anyone would want for their daughter, right? Or anyone would really want. Like, I remember when I was younger, I wrote a manifesting list and he was it. So to then come to this realization that that's no longer true for me was riddled me with anxiety. I was like, am I going to make the wrong decision? I don't get why I feel this way. He hasn't done anything wrong. And that was a huge catalyst for my spiritual awakening because that's when I started to like really go deep into podcasts, really go deep into books like Eckhart Tolle and realizing that you're the awareness of your thoughts. So catching myself every time that I would judge another or think about something that wasn't serving me and wasn't actually from my highest good, right? And I remember on my walk one day trying to just skip through podcasts, finding answers for what could possibly be wrong with me, right? I was trying to label what was wrong with me. Like, why am I feeling like this? And I just got so frustrated. I took my headphones out and I just was like looking at the sky. I'm like, help me. Like, why? What is wrong with me? What is going on? And just this strong, clairaudient experience of like meditate, meditate, meditate. So I was like, oh, but I don't have time. Classic, right?
My lot have got me. I've got away with meditating. They don't ask me to meditate. I think
Yeah.
because they can get through to me at any time. They've done it a different way with me in that they've enabled me to be permanently tuned in, almost like in a half meditative state all the time. So they can get to me when I'm driving. They can get to me no matter what I'm doing. They can just quiet my mind down and drop in. And I have like the opposite going, should I really meditate? Should I be doing this? Because, when I hear the stories like yourself and with so many others that they meditate all the time, and I'm like, I don't do that. Should I be doing that? And every time I do that, I just feel like, no, I've got my own version.
Yeah. And there is no right or wrong to spirituality.
No.
For me at that time, I would have never have meditated. And for me, like I shut out spirituality so much that that was the path of least resistance for me at that time. And I am now at the point where, yeah, I receive messages like whenever, wherever. And I also just enjoy the process of meditating. Like, it takes me back and just stops me for a bit.
Mm.
However, yeah, so that was that. And essentially, all my decisions from that point onwards were coming from this place of just absolute trust in the unknown. So, yeah, I broke up with my partner. I moved states to Queensland all by myself at 20, and then delved deep into hypnosis, self mastery, NLP, past life regression, all of that kind of stuff. And now I've been working with people like Emma Murray on like helping athletes, especially high performance athletes, with their mindset and helping them maximize their performance results via like spirituality and bridging and integrating that into what they do.
Mm. Yeah, well, that intuitive knowing of, I mean, I see it in soccer, like, because I watch the Premier League. I can see all these players are at a club and they're always getting injured, and it's just a clear sign that they're at the wrong club. But, you know, they've gone there for the money and the status and whatever. And then, to me, it's they're not listening to their inner self, and just the way, yeah. And it's going to be the same across many other clubs, that if you're having, it's no different to when you're living in a certain house and your life isn't flowing. That's a clear sign that you're not at the right place. And it's the universe going, start getting ready to move.
I think like whether it's you're not at the right place, or it could just be like a manifestation of thoughts that are going on in the background. Like, if someone's under a lot of pressure in their external life to football, for example, and soccer, like, that's going to manifest on the field. I was explaining to my client the other day that when you're on the soccer field, you literally have a giant spotlight on you, figuratively and literally, which means every single part of you is on show, the performer and also the things that are manifesting and simmering in the background. So if you've had a shit day, it will play and be on show when you perform. So it's able to regulate your emotions, being able to clear any energetic hordes and fears and all that kind of stuff, so that when you do step on and perform, you're a clear vessel for like that flow and connection.
Yeah, they need to be at a place of inner peace.
Sorry?
They need to be at a place of inner peace.
Yeah.
To perform at their top level.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into like the sports side of things? I mean, I know you started off the PT, but why?
Yeah, I've always loved sport. I've played a lot of sport in my time. I never went professional or anything like that. However, I could have if my mindset was different and I had someone like myself coaching me back then. However, for me, like, I remember PTing and doing all that kind of stuff, and I was in a conversation with a really good friend of mine whose husband, he plays, like, my friends play for Richmond AFL club, and I was in conversation with them, and they mentioned that the mindfulness coach of their team has really helped, and her name's Emma Murray. And for me, as soon as I heard about what she did, I was like, that is it. That's what I am here to do. And in the same conversation, I heard about Tony Robbins. So it was like both mentors. I then went deep into their work, listening, reading all their stuff. And for me, like, I'm just extremely passionate about people like transforming, not just like mentally and spiritually, but also physically as well. And so I think the thing that attracts me to athletes in particular is being able to witness their performance results after doing the inner work. It's pretty.
Yeah, you got that tangible change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, and look, they are driven people. Even though I've never played professional, that's all I ever did when I was young, was just play football 24/7 pretty much. And then when I was injured, I was playing golf all the time. There was always something. And then it was martial arts. There was up until early 40s when I decided to retire from one of the sports.
Yeah.
So yeah, but my body still holds that natural fitness. It only takes me a week to get naturally fit again. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I love my body that holds that cellular memory. And that's all because I was driven to perform, which then translated into when my spiritual journey started going. I'd do that all the time. It's not all what I think about, but it's when there's an opportunity, it's just there, it's on. Like, all the people that know me that watch this podcast know that whenever I'm hanging out, that tends to be all I talk about. I'm a bit obsessed, really, in a healthy way, because it's the most fascinating of subjects, because you can go off in so many tangents. We can talk about sport and spirituality, and then we can talk about directly spirituality, about spirit guides and things like that. You're still in the same ballpark. It's such an expansive ballpark. You can talk about it in many different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what's the next stage? Like, is doing professional mindset for a professional sports team? Is that where you're heading to?
Yeah. So I already have clients who are in at a professional level. So just working with them, ideally, working with teams. For me, it's always events. Like, it always comes back to events and doing that. So I think this year is going to be huge for me. I'm undergoing a rebranding right now. So essentially, for me.
So is the Generation Elevation podcast changing?
No. That's always going to be like my bread and butter. And I think that I'll link that in with my events. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look specifically right now. I just know and feel that, it will be a bit more in alignment. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
That's great. Yeah, I've rebranded that many times. Like, I think my first ever name, my first ever incarnation was, I called myself Rainbow Native. And that was right back in my early journey once I moved to Australia. And I've been all kinds of things. And last year, up until just before the podcast, I was doing the Merlin, tuning into my higher self Merlin thing. And then I became the middleman. And it's kind of like, it seems a bit more earth based, a bit more grounded, that name.
Yeah,
but it's still very, very fitting.
No, definitely not changing any names of anything. It's more so like rebranding of the way everything's structured. So like linking my podcast with my events, and then from there, like, my funnel will be like different, like ways that you can work with me and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got my first speaking gig next month. Which is great. Yeah, I organised that myself because Spirit sort of guided me, said, look, you need to start getting on stage.
Yeah.
And until we can start sending them to you and get you in connecting to the right people, just do it yourself, as they always do with me, if you're going to create the path, create the path.
Yes, exactly.
So my spiritual journey has been a lot about path creation, which is challenging because it's quite solo, but I'm not only am I the front man, I'm the back man, and I'm the website creator, the social media person, the graphic designer, and bloody everything. Although I'm starting to slowly tail some of the graphic design to my son, because that's his thing. He's getting into that, so I give him jobs to do on that side of things. But eventually I just want to be the front man with a team behind me. That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, 100%.
So then I can just focus all my energy on the message that Spirit want to send through me, which they're starting to do, which is great. So we had a conversation, what was it, a few days ago?
Yeah.
Time frames, just time zones are shifting that much at the moment. It's hard to remember what day was what. Was it this week or was it last week?
Last week.
Was it last week? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about spirit guides, weren't we?
Yes.
So you're getting a whole bunch coming in at the moment, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. For me, I've never really seen them. Like, I've only seen, like, I have one from a past life that's like here, and her name's Elizabeth. And she's like really strong, mainly there a lot. And now it's like a lot of other guides coming in, and I can actually see them, which I've never been able to do before. So that's been, yeah, a really cool experience to just like be just totally leaning into that unknown, and yeah, receiving that magic is really cool.
So is that seeing them with your physical eyes or in your mind's eye?
My mind's eye, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's how I get them.
Yeah.
I get them they sort of talk. When they talk, it feels like their voice is around here.
Yeah.
And they sometimes tap me on the shoulder. And yeah, it must be a common thing, because I was reading a book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. If you haven't read it, it's an amazing book about a beautiful story. And in there, she mentions that it's here.
Yeah,
And
right.
so whether that's a consistency, I mean, I'm
That's,
not, and you just said the same. Why it's that side must be to do with our physiology, maybe. Yeah, these little quirks that we come across, and until you sort of tune into it a bit more and ask why, you just, because that's where trust comes in. Because on the spiritual journey, we do so many things that we trust that we never ask about, that all of a sudden one day we're meant to know a bit more, and then we ask, and then we go to the place of going, how come I haven't asked about that before? That's when when you're doing the spiritual journey, you're in a really good place of trust, because you don't really ask a lot of questions. You just know something's right in the moment, and it's exactly where it's meant to be. And you get less inquisitive, interestingly enough, and you're in this expansive, energetic realm, and you end up asking less. The irony is you ask less questions.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Which I find quite funny. I found out a couple of years ago that we often say, like, love is the most powerful force in the universe, which will always be the case. And people say gratitude is the second. I feel irony is the second most powerful force, because the amount of times the spiritual realm uses irony for a laugh, and the oxymorons and the paradoxes, that's it's above gratitude for me.
That's actually quite funny because my guides are so sassy, like super sassy. And I went to a breathwork session the other day, and it was beautiful. Like I loved it. And one of the things that my like facilitator said was like calling in your guides and your ancestors. And in my head, like while he's saying this most beautiful thing, they're like, we're already here. Like,
Yeah.
call us in, we're already here. I'm like, and I'm just laughing, like, shush, like it's just, yeah, quite funny when you have that relationship with them and you're open
Yes,
to it.
they're like a bunch of friends, and when you get to know them, they blend in with your personality. So mine are a piss taking bunch of bastards. There's a lot of banter. Like, I asked a question of one yesterday, and he gave me the middle finger.
Ah.
And I was like, really?
Yeah.
And he did it again this morning. I was like, what's all that about? Just but it just gets this kind of like this humor, and yeah. And I think it's just like saying, look, it's just how we're getting to know each other. I'm just showing you who I am. Because when they move beyond, they lose a lot. If they was originally down here, they lose a lot of their personality. But when they want to, they can bring it back in, and they sort of blend it. It's softer, but it's still like it was on Earth. Interestingly, when I'm being the medium, it's interesting when I'm channeling people's relatives through, and they bring through what was well known about them.
Mm.
And yeah, so they don't lose the personality per se, or they bring it through to help those recognize that it's definitely them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And and the spirit guides have their own personality as well.
Yeah,
And I feel they do bring a bit of who we are, so we can resonate better.
definitely. 100%. Yeah, for sure. That's another thing actually I was gonna say to you. So like kind of off topic, but not really. Lately, like there's been this ice cream truck where I live, and it's coming, like I live on like a court on the canal. So like no one's gonna be buying ice cream there, right? But this truck has come down our street like a few times, and I'm like, what the heck? This song, it gets stuck in my head. So now I'm like, okay, obviously Spirit's trying to tell me something. The song's Green Sleeves. So I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
know the one, because I got interested enough. They were doing this to me about maybe about 18 months ago. I mean, it was starting to come in long before that as well, but
Yeah.
at one point they really started making it obvious. And again, I looked into the tune and green sleeves, and who did it lead me to? Because green is obviously the heart and the healing. Sleeves would be this bit, so it's all about energy healing. So that would be Raphael, Archangel Raphael.
Interesting. I haven't done much work with him. I've done a lot of work with Michael, but not Raphael.
Yeah. Have you done Reiki?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dr. Asui will be involved in that. You might possibly even get your own personal healing guide coming in as well.
Interesting. Because I did, like, I think I spoke to you about this the other day, how I had that like folk elf.
Mm.
There's an emoji that looks like the guide that I have. I'm like, wait, I need to find it because I'm like, it is literally just like a blonde elf thing.
Oh,
And that come through. And
yeah,
then
well, I've had Bluey around me since we
yeah,
spoke
you
that
said
day. And interesting enough, like not yesterday, the day before, I was driving to a shopping centre because I just pick up a couple of bits, and I was like, all right, I knew someone was around me. All right, who's around me? Who's my main guide around me today for information and messages and just in general? And just as I said that, I pulled up to a roundabout, and this giant blue truck, blue tanker with the word Bluebird written on it, just
wow.
pulled around in front of me, and I'm like, oh well, that's obvious enough. Because I said to him, I says, make it clear and obvious. And it's like the guide went, big blue truck with Bluebird written on it, obvious enough for you?
Yeah, literally, right?
You know, it's like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
And that's all about sound healing. So that guide, they want me to get the tuning forks.
Right, okay.
Because they want me to learn more about sound healing. And the tuning forks balance the body's frequency. So they want me to do a bit more of that. So again, I've got a new guide coming. Well, I'll say a new guide. He's probably been around, but it's their time to work with me to enhance and expand how I help people.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the point being is that's what your guides have been doing for you. They're all starting to come in because you're going to start learning to work multifaceted. One will come in one day, and then another one, whatever the divine moment is, that particular guide will come in.
Yeah, well, I've had
courses.
Well, we spoke about this the other day, how I had Thoth, the writing guide, come in. And then I also met like my wisdom guide, who he looks like Dumbledore. He's like a wisdom.
Right, okay, cool.
Yeah. And then I've also had Isis come through too.
Yeah, well, I tend to find, well, my journey, when Thoth started coming through, Isis came through as well. It's like the Egyptian bunch come as a bunch.
Yeah,
If you get one, the rest kind of invite themselves.
What's the eagle one? What's the eagle one called for the Egyptian gods?
Oh, it's not Ra. It's
because that's come through as well. Oh my gosh! So that is my guide. It's like, you know, Hawk Girl from.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She's one of my guides. I need to look at like the Nordic. Yeah, I need to look at
Well, that could be quite likely the Valkyrie.
Yeah, I think that was coming through. That came through in my breath work, actually.
Yeah, the Valkyrie ride on the winged horses.
Yeah. So Pegasus come through in that as well.
Yeah.
There you go. Must have been.
Yeah, and that's interesting enough when you do the wisdom journey of which you're doing, these level of beings start coming in because they're teaching us a different level of, like, you know, when we played with just earthbound higher self, they go, right, you've learned that. Now we're going to expand you, which means a new level of knowledge, a new way of being. Whatever's not meant to be will fall away. So, you know, you might go through that process again, like what happened when, you know, it might not be a partner, it might be work, you know, they might step you in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if the sport stuff falls away.
Yeah.
I know that's your trajectory, but it wouldn't, you know, I know what the universe are like.
Yeah.
There'll still be elements of it if that's the case, but there'll be an obvious segue.
Yeah.
it'll be the same but completely different.
Interesting.
You know, so to give you an instance, like I was an electrician for 20 odd years, and then it stopped. No,
Yeah.
you're done with that. And then they brought in a different kind of energy.
Yeah.
Same but completely utterly different on a completely much bigger level. But you can see it's a direct link. Because I mean, I didn't really make the connection. And then years later, someone said to me, they went, "Oh, so you did all that physical energy and then you're learning spiritual energy." I went, "Oh, it's so obvious. Oh my God." So clearly obvious, you know.
Well, maybe. Like I don't know if it will be business. I think it will be more so where I'm living.
Mm.
What I've been coming through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're all getting moved. We're all getting physically moved. I know I've got one coming.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. It might even be overseas. I'm not sure yet. Because I went to go looking, and then I started seeing ants everywhere, which basically meant patience. So if you start seeing ants everywhere, for you who are listening, it means the universe is saying have patience. So whatever it is that you're trying to force, take a step back. And since I got them, they got really obvious with the message. I started getting ants where I sit doing this. There was tiny little ants at my feet that were nipping at my feet
Yeah.
because I'm really trying to push the move. I was really trying to say, look, I'm ready to move, and was starting to look and stuff like that. And they went, nope, stay where you are. Like, oh, really? And then once I obviously energetically got the message, no more ants.
Yeah.
They just disappeared. So, the animal messengers are great like that. They'll turn up and then they'll disappear. When you got the message, you stop seeing them. I am going through big changes though, but they're getting really like I've always understood the messages of change, but this is the first time that I can remember where they've got really obvious with it. So change can come with me. It comes with treble twos and treble fives. Treble fives is big changes are coming. Treble twos is when it's getting closer because it means the final details are being worked out. Then I start seeing pregnant ladies, which means I'm about to birth something into the physical reality. So I know it's close. And normally when I get them, they don't show me anything else because I've got the message.
Yeah.
But this time they're backing it up with cockroaches, which is about life, death, and rebirth. And then, like, when I get that, I'm like, I know that one. And then they did the scorpion message. Well, I've never had that one, which is also about life, death, and rebirth and big change. And I'm like, okay, there's something much bigger than I've ever expected, because they're going, yes, something big is coming, change is coming, but far beyond, when we're having to tell you a different level.
Yeah.
And possibly with maybe a little bit of a sting in the tail with a scorpion message.
Interesting.
But as I said that, they showed me there's no sting, but scorpions carry their young on the backs of their body.
Yeah.
It's their protection of the young. And because my son's about to turn 18, I might be leaving him. And they might just be showing me that he's protected. This is just theorizing in the moment. Yeah. But that also brings in Mother Mary energy, because she's the protector of the kids. So, so when you start to understand the messages of the universe, and I've been doing this for a long time now. So for you who are listening and watching, this might seem a bit obscure, the link. When you put it all together, it's an easy segue, even though it looks completely different. So any protection by mother is always Mother Mary energy. But why they show me that via the scorpion message, I'm yet to find out. But if I'm meant to find out, and if I'm meant to know, and when I do, it'll be a very obvious reason, and then I'll hold that wisdom with me, and I'll be able to guide others through exactly the same.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, last night I went for a walk and I was seeing crabs, like little white crabs.
Sideways movement.
Yeah.
Although white crabs, that'd be spirit based.
Yeah, and I was seeing manta rays or stingrays.
Yeah, okay.
Which I've never seen before. And apparently all my housemates have seen them, except I've never seen them. And literally for 2 days in a row, I saw them. I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, so that's about bringing in higher wisdom and speaking it to people who are still more earth-based, who don't know some of those spiritual principles, which is, again, it's part of the wisdom journey, that when you start getting wisdom, you got to share it.
Yeah, so that's literally what kind of how you introduced me, like the bridge, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about how manta rays are, they've got their eyes on top and their mouth on the bottom.
Mhm.
So information coming down that you can see, and then you speak it to those below you and not beneath you, below, those, because like we're all on different levels.
Of course, yeah.
We're on different levels. The stuff that I know, I'm passing down to you, and then you're passing it down, goes, that's spiritual wisdom gets passed down. That's a better term.
Yeah,
So you're about to come into a place of passing down, which is probably why your job may change.
Mhm. Well, I think it will be more so just going into that event space.
Yeah. Yeah. It just might be a different delivery of, might not necessarily be so sports performance based, but just high performance mindset based in general,
Yeah.
but more from that energetic spiritual journey perspective.
Yeah, well, like with athletes, I love that. And I also work with business owners as well. So it's like a bit of a mix. It's mainly
Yeah.
just achievers, people that are like high achievers wanting to better themselves, get better results. So
That's going to be everyone soon,
yeah.
because everyone's really starting to open up to their abilities, which pushes them to achieve and evolve with those abilities.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely.
it's not all going to be just mindset based in regards to the logical mind, because the intuitive mind runs the show. That's what my public speaking event's going to be about. That what really runs the show. The universe want me to start spreading that message now, because when Mother Earth fully goes into 5D, and we're very close to that now, she's just in the final stage of shedding the 3D and 4D vibration. When we fully go there, the intuition mind's going to be the only thing, and people are going to need to know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So the people are, you're already aware of that. You're one of the lucky ones. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be stepping into it brand new. The classic cliche, waking up into the bright sunshine, going, "Wow, I've got this shiny new thing. I'm seeing the world through shiny new eyes, and I don't quite know what to do with all this. And I can hear people, or I can see spirit, or I can feel," and that's never happened before. And the overwhelm or the natural level of fear that is the barrier for us to push beyond when we grow, that'll come in.
Mhm.
So the likes of you and myself will be there to guide those people. So, you take a sports person that's been a sports person all their life, all of a sudden starts hearing voices telling them to move gloves or telling them to do their fitness a different way. And they're going to go, am I going crazy? And then they come and speak to, they come to one of your events and you talk about that. Then they want to come and see you and find out more.
Exactly.
And that blends into their life, and then they're getting guided in a completely different way.
Exactly. So yeah, exciting things ahead, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. The 5D changeover, it's starting to get interesting now, even in the mainstream. And it's just, truth is at wildfire stage, as I'm seeing now. It's unstoppable, which is good. So we're close. We're close to the final switch over, which means our time of getting buffeted around by spirit will calm down a little bit.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I know, yeah. We can step a bit more into learning on a more calmer level, and not having to work 24/7 off realms and multidimensional. And yeah, we might get a bit of a rest. So in regards to spiritual, like, what's the next stage for you, do you feel?
As in regards spiritually?
Yeah, your spiritual journey. So outside of what you'd class as your business or even your personal life, I'm talking solely your energetical journey.
Okay. My energetical journey. I think like what I think is coming, or I feel is coming for me next in my journey, is just like fully leaping and trusting in that, and being a conscious creator rather than like creating unconsciously. So being really mindful and disciplined in the way that I speak, and the way that I feel, because obviously the way you feel and what you speak, right, is what you attract. So yeah, coming from this place of conscious creating, and yeah, just trusting. Just trusting.
Yeah, you're exactly right in what you said about what we speak, we create, like that. The witch version of spelling, when you cast spells, that energy behind that is becoming more how it used to be. In other words, strong. And so again, for the listeners and the watchers, watch your words, watch your internal dialogue of how you say about yourself, because you thinking and speaking that into reality. Watch what you write down, because you're creating a spell in that very moment. And it's okay to have off days and have negative thoughts. That's okay, as long as you don't choose to stay there. That's where the spell becomes powerful, because you're basically saying to the universe, I'm choosing this now, so I definitely want this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the reason it comes into our thought process in the first place is to show us if we want that or not. And if it's negative, no, we're not going to want negative stuff. But if we continue to think that, therefore we're choosing that, the universe going, good, I'm glad you chose it, here you go. And then you wonder why you got bad luck.
Yeah.
So, as a little exercise, watch what you say over the next, for those that are listening and watching, write down what you say over the next 5 days, and then see how that links into how your life is looking right now. And you'll find a very close link.
Very
I'll be
powerful.
very surprised if you don't. Yeah. And because we're all coming into that power of powerful manifestors.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, so we literally are being given the power of our words.
Yeah.
Because you think about that conversation when I jokingly said, didn't I? I said, like, because I was talking about my new guy that came in, that's Blue Avian, which is off-world a starseed guide. And I said, knowing my guys, he'd probably call himself Bluey. And then I literally sent you that picture, 3 minutes later, because I walked around the corner and there was a bookshop with that Bluey character just all there. And it was just like, I'll put that picture in the edited version that will go on YouTube so people can see what I got shown. It was just like, and the fact that he's the one that wants to bring in that music, that more the sound at the higher level of sound healing for me to learn. The books directly were below it were called the Magic Xylophone.
Wow.
Which is even more. And I was just like, oh. So yeah.
I love all that stuff. Like, yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I've also got one around me as well that's from the fairy realm. So there's a dwarf around me as well. I've literally been seeing dwarves, which is interesting because
I put in the chat that emoji.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of what mine look like.
That's the elf, yeah. Oh, so it's like Zelda almost.
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Zelda. Legend of Zelda, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so that's that nature realm. So you'll start getting used to seeing the insects and the animals, when just like I see the ants and the earwigs. And yes, I didn't literally see a physical scorpion, but I was seeing it on trucks. And and my son and I were looking at building a PC, and was the company that builds the actual tower that the PC tower that you put all the bits in was Scorp Tech. So it was just really getting obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, messages do, right? They get obvious. So when you're in a position, you start to notice a repetitive pattern over and over again. That's spirit getting through to you. That's the universe. And when I say spirit, that includes your higher self. So it's actually you nagging at you. So they're doing that for a reason.
Definitely. Yeah, exactly.
And is there any area that you'd like to evolve into that you're aware of, but you've not really had any experience with yet?
How do you mean? Like for
So would you like to do any mediumship stuff or sound healing or anything like that in the future?
I think like mediumship stuff, like it's never really called to me. So I don't think that that's like my path in this life. I think for me, like sound healing is definitely a huge thing. Like I've been called to like learn how to sing and like music, and yeah, so that's something that I'll incorporate into my events in some way. Yeah, I'm just gonna flow and see what happens. Wherever I'm meant to be, I'm sure I'll be pushed there one way or another,
Yeah, yeah. And you'll, by the sounds of things, you'll definitely hear/see the insight.
Yeah.
And we don't get to know everything. They give us a kind of rough idea and then go, right, off you go. We'll kind of keep you on the road. You
Yeah.
won't wander off too far. If you do, we'll push you back onto it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do keep us in check, that's for certain. They do, even more so now than maybe even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We're being, we've got to surrender our journey or surrender to our journey far more now than we did 5 years ago.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
it's just getting more and more that way.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So do you feel you'll be moving out of Queensland again?
I think like with my event stuff, I'll be traveling a lot, and with the athletes thing. So yeah, I'm just like I said, I'm so in the unknown and just completely trusting my path, trusting where it's gonna go.
Any events coming up in the near future?
Yeah, I'm gonna be running one at S30 on the 11th. So that's like a place in Mermaid Beach in Gold Coast.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I'll be running one there, which will be cool. And then that's the first one of
Well,
many.
that's the start.
Yes,
That's the
definitely.
start. You
Yeah.
know, it's because it was always, I found it fascinating how the universe got us to meet up, which
Yeah.
was through Travis, who runs the Technician podcast.
Yes.
And he just he came to visit you. I was on his podcast on the Saturday morning, and then he came to visit you, and I think he was ringing me the Saturday afternoon.
Yes, he was.
And then we held the podcast on Sunday morning.
Yeah. I know.
Was it Sunday morning? Was it Sunday afternoon? I don't know. I know it was the next day anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I think the following Friday, that's when I did my first episode.
Yeah, that's so good.
So yeah, podcasts being brought out of podcasts. So how did your podcast come about? So this is the Generation Elevation podcast. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's just was guided by spirit for like a year, and my guides were I wasn't as connected then, and I just thought it was an idea that I had, and I really wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it with someone else because I thought that I like who would want to listen to just me by myself, and so I had a like really close girlfriend at the time and we were going to do it together. We started like recording some stuff and then just it didn't work. And then we kind of had this falling out, which then led to me just like not doing it at all. And it never left the back of my mind. Every person I'd talk to would be like, we should start a podcast together. We should start a podcast together. My housemate was like, we should start a podcast together. And I was like, hang on a second, the common theme here is everyone wants to start a podcast with me because I'm in all of these conversations. So if I just create my own podcast, then I don't have to rely or wait for anyone else to like get it happening and going. Like I know that if I want to do something, that I make it happen. I can't stand when people say that they're going to do something and then don't follow through. It's just like it's just not who I am and or what I do. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to start by myself because this thought it hasn't gone away. And like now in hindsight, my guides are like, those ideas weren't just ideas, like they were messages, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, for me, that's how I started Generation Elevation. The name fully channeled, like, yeah.
Mm.
So
Well, interestingly enough, you know, for you to teach the driven, you've got to be driven.
mm,
And I find like under the umbrella term of the healer, you've got to be more driven than those that you're teaching. Because if you're leading the way, you've got to be slightly ahead. At the minimum, slightly ahead. You know, I coach a lot of psychics now and gifted people, which means I've got to be further down the track to know what their journey looks like.
yeah.
You know, some might be further along on their specific gift, which that just means my gift just tunes in ahead of theirs to see where they're headed. I don't necessarily have to be there per se. It just means that my gift ability, I'm more fluent with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, going back to the podcast stuff, well, the middleman was born out of my podcast because I had to think of a name for it. And I just said, oh, I'll be the middleman. and then just had that, and it just stuck, and everyone loves it, and it just fits really well, and I'm actually, my trajectory is, or what Spirit sort of just starting to nudge at now, it's going to become more of a discussion forum. You see a lot of podcasts where they've got quite a few people on it, and it's not one specific guest. They're going, that's where it's going to go. Because when I'm with people, that's when I really flow with information, and they want to get me there because it's going to help people, because there's going to be so many people starting to wake up into the spiritual journey with nowhere to turn. It's, these one-on-ones are brilliant. They're a bit more targeted though. Whereas like if we've got 3 or 4 people and we're just talking in general, that's when I really flow with all the information that I've channeled over the years. That's really going to then help lots and lots of more people on the general level.
Yeah.
Because my podcast machine was in for repair, and when I was due to pick it up, they hadn't done it properly. So when I went back, out of good faith and customer service, they gave me, actually, they swapped it just for a brand new one and gave me a couple of extra cables. So now I've actually got 4 microphone cables when before I only had 2. So it's those little things going, here's a hint, this is what's coming. And I'm getting a sense to find a venue to do it at. So I have a localized place to always do my podcast at, and then just say, right, let's get a few of us, let's just sit around and talk a spiritual journey and see where you're at, and then see what comes.
Yeah, cool. I love that.
Yeah, so at some point in the future, you'll probably be sat with a few others and in a localized place, and we'll see where you're at, how far you've grown,
Oh,
how
exciting.
your podcast growing, and how your events are going, and and then see what guides are around you at the time. And
yes,
it'd be good to see the growth.
Yeah. That would be so cool. I would love that.
Yeah. So I feel like we're just probably coming to the tail end. So any wisdom, anything you'd like to share with the listeners and the watchers?
Any wisdom? Give me like an example. What specifically?
You're the intuitive one. Here's your platform.
Pull something out of thin air, right?
Yeah, that's how Spirit wants us to operate. See if you can channel in the moment.
So channeling a message for the collective, you mean?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What do Roy's listeners need to hear from me right now? To trust, literally just trust in that unknown, like trust yourself. I think one of my mentors taught me this saying, and it's so simple, right? It goes like this: stop, drop, and listen. It means stop, get out of your head and listen to your heart, and trust in what your heart has to say over your head, and follow that.
So is the drop meaning drop into your heart, or drop what you're listening to?
Drop into your heart.
Beautiful. Yeah. So there you go, everyone. That is a great message, especially for what's coming, because we are being guided to get out of our head and into our heart.
So that would be my message for everyone listening today.
And that's a great message. That's a great message. So on a business level, there'll be all Elise's contact, social media details in the comments. And so if you want to go and find her, if you're a high functioning sports person looking for some mindset coaching, you can find Elise across socials. It's the links will be in the comments anyway.
Yeah, so you can check out my podcast, Generation Elevation. That's on Spotify and iTunes. And then mainly where most people find me, so I work with athletes that are in that professional space, or even just like professionals in business, high achievers. So if you're wanting to contact me and know how we can work together, or just tune in, then my Instagram's elise.riley. Super simple.
Yeah, nice, easy. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's where we'll finish the show today. It's been lovely having you on the show and returning the favor.
There's no favors. It's just, it's just energy, and it's fun. Thank you for having me.
And that's what's coming. It's all about that ebb and flow balance, and yeah, which is the world's going to be very, very more balanced.
Yes.
Yeah, it's starting to come in. It'll only get stronger, which is great because it'll be a beautiful place. It's always been a beautiful place to live for me, but there'll be less craziness in it soon.
Yeah.
Less madness.
Great. Exciting.
I know, exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Although the madness has been a fun show, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're looking at it from our perspective, it's been fun to watch at times.
Yes.
When you know
Definitely.
what's coming, it's been fun to watch.
Mm, mm.
On that note, I'll see everyone in the next show. I'm not sure who the next guest with. The universe will let me know in the right time. I've still got a list to get through. Might go back to the male side of the things, and I look forward to staying in touch with yourself, Elise, and see how your journey grows bigger and how you grow into that amazing wisdom that you're already tuning into.
Thank you. Yeah.
Again, thanks very much for coming on the show today. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and I'll see you all on the next show. And have a great weekend to everybody.